Today in studio, we are joined by Harold Moyo, who was born and bred in Zimbabwe and now lives in Johannesburg, South Africa. He is the founder of Fresh Impressions, an events management company. Also, you manage talent there as well. When was Fresh Impressions started and why?
So during my break of when I went back home, what we did is that we started Fresh Impressions. And for me, obviously, I said it's purpose. So I remember the first thing when we went home, we're going to do a clothing apparel. So we did Fresh Impressions tees. I remember taking my brother on a train ride to Victoria Falls because we knew that there's a tourist there. Took a bag full of T-shirts, and we got there in the morning, sold all those T-shirts and went back home, and we're like, what, we're going to do events, we're going to do record label, we're going to do all these things, youth dreaming big. And then we came to South Africa, and then when I came in South Africa, because of the knowledge of the music, there's a friend of mine called Gregory Kazim, was not a friend, he was just a Facebook friend at that time. He had brought in like some American artists, and he was like, dude, you know it so much, why don't you bring in these people? Because I'm full-time, because he works for Nedbank in Durban. He's one of the bosses in Durban. And what then happened was that we got in touch, and the next thing, he hooked me up with my next event, which was my first event, and it was my first international event, which was
So you started with an international event?
Well, I was already planning an international event, but I then did shows with a gentleman called CJ to try and advertise that event.
Okay.
So we did Lecrae, who's probably the biggest Christian hip hop artist ever, and he brought in the whole record label, KB, and Dimineo, Tadashi, that was like all of them. So thank God that there was some monies which I was saving, and so we managed to pay for that. And building up to that, we booked CJ, who was in Durban at that time, and then we did shows, we did runs actually our first one was in Elders. I remember there was like 300 people who just came up, and the venue was so packed. And then we did a run in Harare and then Bulawayo also. And because I was not doing Joburg only with the 116 with Lecrae, we did like 8 African cities. And
that was big, eh?
Yeah, that was really, really big, and yeah, ambitious too, but it went well.
Well received in all the cities.
Well received, but some cities they just had some logistical issues, like planning is important. During that time also, that's when like the record label got birthed, because CJ was probably the biggest Christian hip hop artist at that time, and he was really getting booked like Caucasians, churches, all the mega churches, they love CJ, and they are the ones with the budgets anyways. So he comes to me and he says, can we sign a management deal? Man, I'm like, okay. I used to listen to this man when I was in school, and
how did you take that in? How did you,
so
try to make sense of that?
So for me, I always have to know at times when it's me, and then at times when it's God. Of which most of the time it's God. So when most of the time it's God, I just have to be confident and just receive it, and then I'll dance later. I'll dance later privately in my room.
Yeah.
So we signed him, and that was our first Fresh Impressions artist. And yeah, we did a lot. So yeah.
Your firsts have really been very impressive.
Yes. The firsts were like big.
Right?
The biggest Christian hip hop artist in South Africa, and then the biggest Christian hip hop artist in the world.
And you started with an international event.
So that was amazing.
How did the name come about?
Fresh Impressions. So I've got a friend of mine who's in the States. He always used to call me. So there was these sneakers which were also in the line of Jordans called End Ones. So it's the End One, also it's like a basketball mixtape, like street basketball stuff. So we happened to start wearing these sneakers and stuff, back home in Zim and stuff. And each and every time my friend would be like, oh, look at you, you're so fresh, Harry Fresh, Harold, you're so fresh. So like my boys just started calling me Harry Fresh, Harry Fresh, Harry Fresh. And so I took that fresh name with always leaving an impression, so we just basically meshed the two, like fresh impressions. If you see my old social media handles were always like say Harry Fresh, then I realized I'm old. Let me just be say Harold Moyo, So that's how the name came about.
Wow. Okay, so now you come across as somebody who's trying to bring cool into the Christian side of things.
Yeah.
Is that intentional or you just cool? That's just you.
Okay, so I think that's just me, but also I realize that there's also a huge chunk of a walk and cool Christians who the church is not taking care of. So they feel like they're misfits. They feel like they are not part. They feel like they're not, in the community. So if we've got a leader or a champion who's coming up and he says, hey, look at me. And also I'm coming up and I'm not being wishy-washy. I've got solid theology. There's passion behind, there's excellence in what we do. Then it's easy for the crowds to then say, there's actually someone who's championing this thing. So, because initially when I came to South Africa, I was like, we're just going to do Bible college and plant a church. Plant a church, the whole thing was going to plant a church for all the outsiders.
They're so cool.
Because the thing that at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that if you're a Christian, you always have to be in suit and tie, or you always have to be in your duke and stuff. Your duke can be on fleek. Now you guys are making it trendy, but it doesn't mean that. And it was also at that time where God just said, just focus on fresh impressions for now, but I'll tell you when it's actually time for you to do the plans. So now when you look at your Stephen Furtick, your Michael Todd, and all those people, in my head I'm like, this has always been in my heart, And I guess after a while, then God then said, it's now time. Yeah.
And now with the artists that you've worked with locally, one can see that it's also the ones that have not followed the traditional Christian music route.
Yes.
Do you think that they are pulled by what you are presenting, and so they can identify with you, or you went and looked for such?
So this is the thing. I would not manage Mama Hlengiwe Mhlava. I would not go to a colleague or Dumim Costard, in as much as he calls me, say, loves me, Dumim Costard show. I will not do that. Even if you look at my iTunes, my playlist iTunes, I think the best, which we can even say, I don't even think they can be traditional, is probably like Benjamin Dube is the only one who's there, maybe Ngobeng Mbata who's the one who's even there.
And your Dr. Tumis.
And your Dr. Tumis, those are probably the only ones who are like there in my playlist. I won't even listen to someone like Ntogo Zimbabwe in as much as they call it contemporary. So I think you would end up having a burnout if you just work with talent which you do not believe in, which you also do not enjoy. So when we go to Electromod and then Lilly signed out Electromod, which is a big secular label, they take us, those Lockinville brothers and stuff, and then you hear Lilly Million and you're like, there's Jesus in this girl, and you're like, let's come closer, and then you go to Skyrim Live, you get closer, you get to talk and stuff, you realize, no, it's Jesus. Then like, why don't we come and we do this music and actually do Christian album, and you see her music is not really commercial, but they think that there's a market for it.
Yeah.
And everyone, whether with your Courtney Antipas, who's respected in the Zim hip hop scene, who's probably loved more in South Africa in terms of actually supporting, in terms of money, whether it's your Black Newborn or whoever, all these people, the poets, Sipokazi Jonas and all. And I feel like also even like with Christian hip hop, folk, contemporary music, poetry, we basically put that on the map, And right now we had just taken a break with the record label. We just signed another young girl called Kelita, who's actually a film scoring artist, and she went to Berkeley in the States. Amazing singer, songwriter, pianist. Even when you listen to her, you'll be like, this is actually not South African music, but the thing is, there is room for that.
I was going to talk about that. Do we have a market, looking at our African audience, that are so used to your traditional gospel music? We had a Kenyan artist here on the show by the name of Evelyn Wanjiru. The kind of music that she does is the sound that is like your Joya Celebration, the South African group, and also your Ntokozo Mbambos. And that music is so celebrated in Kenya. And you look at Nigeria with the likes of Sinach and them, and there's such a huge following. How do you plan to create room in the continent for the kind of music that you are bringing?
So we've created room. We've created room because I'll tell you now, a Joya Celebration or even a Dr. Tumi right now, if they're to go to Uganda, where we're probably pulling bigger numbers in terms of fresh impressions, they'll probably not have the same numbers which we pull. So we've taken Lilly, Pompey, Zambian artist, Ebu Chungu, Zambian artist, Mark 44, Zambian artist. We've been doing festival called a Fed Fest and Born Free in Uganda. I'm just giving you an example. And we do those at the Kaidondo Rugby Stadium. We usually have 10,000 people. So these are 10,000 people. These are 10,000 people you know what I mean? This is Malawi. We do stuff, boy called Suffix, and we do stuff there in Malawi. He's doing rap. He's probably the biggest rap artist in Malawi as we speak. Last show we did with him, he had almost 10,000 people too. So it's also knowing the locations and what to do. With South Africa, the difference is that I feel like stuff like Just Life is not centralized. We've got options, we can listen to stuff. I think the biggest show I've had in South Africa was probably 5,000 people. But we're trying to do a festival 26, 27 April at the Dome. That will be like our first where we in a huge
venue like that. You'll tell us more after the break if you are targeting just young people or everyone is welcome.
Hi, I am Zozibini Tunzi, Miss South Africa 2019, and you are watching Life by Design with Amanda Machak.
Perfect. Welcome back to Life by Design right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. My name is Amanda Machaka, and today in studio we are joined by Harold Moyo, who is the founder of Fresh Impressions. He was sharing with us how he grew up in Zimbabwe and who he was looking up to and how he wanted to be entertainment, but not just entertainment purely for that, but entertainment with purpose. And he went on to establish Fresh Impressions, where he works with talent and he does events management as well. He shared how he's worked with different artists that are bringing the cool element to Christianity, so to speak. But it's not just only targeting young people, I believe, but you're also looking at other people. And you mentioned earlier that you worked with an artist by the name of Lilly.
Yes.
Well, she's joining us on the line right now to talk to us about how she's worked with you. Lilly, thank you for joining us and welcome to Life by Design.
Thanks for having me.
Wow. So this is how you guys roll.
Yeah, this is how we do.
This is how you guys roll. Wow.
Yeah, so this is the surprise guest element that you bring onto the show. Yeah, right.
That's so cool.
And I'm so fortunate to happen to know Lilly, her music as well. I don't know if she remembers me from the last event that I was part of and she was performing. And the music, I must say, it's different. If you are not a traditional, if you are actually a traditional Christian somebody, you would miss the element of gospel in her music. Lilly, tell me, was it difficult to find somebody who understands the kind of music that you do?
You mean in terms of working with Harold or just as audience members?
Working with Harold.
Yeah, so I think that's just where I think the Lord God just worked it out, because I was at a place where I was kind of in limbo, and I knew Harold through, he had done work with my husband, and we just connected. I think that some connections were already established, I think about 2 years before then, so he was kind of on my radar. So it wasn't necessarily that I was like hunting or whatever. I was thinking about it, obviously, like as a person, like what am I going to do next? And I think he was at the place where he was looking for somebody first to work with, and we just kind of, I think it just was almost serendipitous. It just kind of came together like that.
Mm-hmm. And how important was it for you to find someone who understands you, who understands your sound, and is not trying to steer you towards a direction that you don't want to go to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like 100% key, because as an artist, you always have people in your ear telling you what to do, and sometimes you can get lost in everyone's opinions and all of that stuff. So for me, at the time with the direction I wanted to go to, I knew that if I don't have someone, first of all, who believes in what I'm speaking about in the music, so let's just start there, there's going to be problems, because in terms of the type of events I would do or wouldn't want to do, or the type, how I want to present myself as an artist, things like that will come into play, as well as integrity. You know what I mean? So just how you work, are you honest? Are we looking after each other? Like, just in terms of respecting each other, that would have been it would have been difficult to do that with someone who didn't share the same beliefs with me. That's 100% for sure.
Mm-hmm. So in the time that you've worked with Harold, what kind of a manager was he like?
So very hands-on, there at every single event. We push very hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Harold would be like, no, bro, we're going to go sell to like the 3 people that are there. It's fine. Very determined, and I think a very, very big risk taker. You know, we would butt hit sometimes, so we've had our own fair share of blowouts, but I think it's added to the bond that we have, because he would just take the biggest risks, and sometimes I'm like, no, this is not going to work. What are you doing? You know,
can you mention one of the biggest risks that is taken?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think. So I think, I need to obviously watch my words here, but I think so one thing that Harold is big on is getting artists across the continent, so just not performing within South Africa. You know, so through him I was able to perform in like your Zambia, your what you call Swaziland, your Uganda, like places like that. And I mean, there'd be times where, you know, obviously different promoters, you make deals, things happen. Maybe somebody in one country has backed out of a deal, but I'm expected to perform there, and obviously there's financial implications. And I'd be at the place where I'm like, hey, dude, let's just leave this thing. He's like, nope, let's go. We'll figure it out when we get to the other side.
Right.
You know, and there'd be times we'd fight. And I'm like, no, dude, but things are going to go wrong. You know what I mean? Like, but he just very driven by...
very driven,
by
very
the
ambitious.
vision. You know what I mean? And so sometimes I had to be that voice to be like, hey, come back. And then sometimes you'd have to be like, no, listen, let's just go and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
And how has he helped you grow as an artist?
I think first of all, in terms of just exposing me to a wider audience, a very wide audience reach that I didn't have before. So yes, I had traveled and stuff like that, but in terms of just finding sort of a niche market, not only in SA, but especially outside of South Africa, especially like your sub-Saharan Africa, where I got to perform in spaces where I wouldn't have been able to, just simply because he believed in what I was doing. So in terms of reaching ears that were not in my immediate circle of influence, that has been the biggest thing, you know, where I don't see how it would have happened outside of that. And also just, like I said, taking the risk, you know what I mean? Sometimes he would have to bear the brunt of somebody hasn't paid for a flight, and he has to do it because, listen, we said we're doing this thing, you know? So and I think also for me personally, it was a very new thing to have someone believe in me, as in like from a business partnership perspective, where they really put the money where their mouth is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in our industry, there's a lot of talk. People will say, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do that, you know. And yes, some things weren't done, but in very big ways, a lot of the things he said he would do were actually done, and a lot of them were costly. Not everything would work out, but, you know, he was still there putting pedal to the metal, like rolling sleeves up. So it also just gave me a sense of, if I'm believing in myself as an artist, what does it actually mean? How far am I actually willing to go to push this thing?
Right.
You know what I mean? And how many risks am I willing to take? Because I would see him, I'm like, yo, this guy just goes, you know? So, yeah.
How would you encourage him to keep going? We can tell now he's not someone who does things in a small scale. He goes big. He's a big dreamer. and of course, that comes with a lot of challenges. And I like the fact that he's driven. But, we are human. And sometimes we get tired along the way. How would you encourage him to keep going and not to give up? Because there are other Lily Millers that he has to help and discover.
Yeah. I think for me, and he knows this, I'm always sending him these kind of messages where I really do believe that his calling is to unite creatives, provide these platforms. Somebody described him as Harold could sell water to a fish. He's got that way of just convincing people. And as artists, a lot of us were very shy. We have a lot of self-doubt, so you need someone like that in your corner. It's just people like him don't get the platforms because they're not the one who's on stage. So for me, I always tell him that don't lose sight of the gifting that God has given you, the purpose that He has given you. Don't get sidetracked by all the happening, because like I said, this industry can be quite brutal.
Yeah.
People stab each other in the back, and it can get you to a point where you feel like you just want to give up and not progress. But for me, I always say to him, learn what you need to learn. You know what I mean? Like I said, Harold is the kind of guy who he'll go all the way. And some people take advantage of that, But it's the thing I'm saying, that just because, a situation went a certain way doesn't mean that, okay, it's over now.
Yeah.
Keep going. And for me, I always say to him that the evidence has shown in that how Fresh Impressions has grown and how it has impacted, especially the Christian art. I'm like, that's proof that you are where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's just a thing where I'm like, if this wasn't a thing, I'm like, the events wouldn't be happening. The artists wouldn't be trusting him to say, okay, we're going to come to SA, we're going to do this thing. None of it would be there. And also just as a person, when you're driven by purpose, you're not addressed when you're not doing that thing that you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a sign that, hey, dude, this is in your blood. And so for me, like I always, like he knows, I wish him well and like so much success, and for things to just really just get bigger and bigger, because I think that's who he is.
Thank you so much, Lily. Those were beautiful words. I'm sure you concur, Harold.
Wow. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Mrs. Ann.
He was just so quiet and taking everything in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lily.
All right.
All right, cool. Cheers.
All righty.
Bye.
Harold, getting to hear that you are somebody who unites creatives, as Lily has said. I spoke earlier to you about the kind of audience that you are targeting, and I checked, is it young people only? Is there a way that you are uniting audiences as well in terms of age?
So I realized also my age group has grown with me, because now it's mostly like, there were times when we could get teens, but I realized now we've grown from, I can say we reached 20 to just under 40-year-olds. And also that also influences the shows, the events which we put up. So I'm not gonna try and stick to an age group when that season is over. So if I grow, or if my audience grows with me, I'll grow with them too.
Lily mentioned that there's been a number of challenges along the way, and those could really, for other people that perhaps are not as strong as you are, could put them off and they just give up. How do you keep going even when you do reach some challenges, but you still dream big? Like now, you want to tackle the dome.
Yeah.
How do you do it so that someone who is not as strong might be encouraged and learn something from you?
So you have to realize that you are not your own source. Because if you try and do something without God, you burn out. So I realized with me that I always get encouraged to say each and every time God is on my side. And you always bring in people who need to come in and support. Because there is some brutal, there is some not nice situations which have happened. But also, I can't magnify those things no more than the amazing things which have happened over the past decade. So that's really my push. My passion is pushed, is influenced by purpose.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. When you are purpose driven,
Yeah.
you will not give up.
Yes.
Because you know that you have to keep going. There's something that is established in you to keep you doing what you're doing.
Yes.
So it's important to know that whatever it is that you venture into, there's a purpose underlying.
That's true.
Awesome. So now You're not just doing music, but you've also done poetry.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about the kind of poetry that you've introduced under Fresh Impressions.
So it's mostly Christian poetry, but also being Christian poetry doesn't mean that these poets do not write about what's happening in the world, what's happening in the community and in South African context. First week of December, we're doing a show with, it basically targets 16 days of activism. It's called We Are Dying Here, with Sipokazi Jonas from Cape Town, Hope Nechibambe from Pretoria, and then another vocalist from Cape Town. So we are basically saying we're using words to just tackle issues.
And it's very important what you guys are doing, what you're addressing. It's called We Are Dying Here.
Yes.
So is it informed by, the rate of femicide in South Africa?
Yes, it's informed by the rate of femicide in South Africa.
And how can people get involved?
Every ticket is on cricket.co.za. But if you want to get involved, sponsor, or just be part or whatsoever, it's a +27 76 4263 508.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's Harold Moyo. He's the founder of Fresh Impressions. Thank you for joining us. From myself, Amanda Machaka, producers Yamintle Nyama, Bungiseni Choma, and technical producer Didi Malo. Till next time, and remember, you are the architect of your life.